Hey, it's your buddy Tim Schill, and we're doing another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today we are doing a video on the Ultimate Ruel Huntmaster Guide. Now I get to fuse him right now, so we'll go ahead and summon him, and then I will take him and gear him out on my account. I do not have a Thea, but I will gear him out on my account as well as I can. We'll take him for a spin, and then I'm going to jump on one of my clanmates' accounts who has him geared out in top-end gear with Thea, and we'll be able to run those two together and see how he goes. So stick around. We'll see you in a minute. Okay, so welcome back, and let's go over Ruel's kit real quick one more time. You can see his base stats are pretty good. His attack is high, his defense is low, his speed is a little on the low side for a champ like this. He gets some free crit rate and crit damage, and a little bit of resist and accuracy as well. So as he's got a one-hitting A1 that has a chance of putting a decreased defense buff on the target. It books to 65%, does some damage. His A2, he will attack all enemies, place an extra hit. If they have a Hex debuff on them, which he places himself, this is his big hitter. A3, he places the Hex, increases accuracy, and also places himself under a Perfect Veil on a 4-turn cooldown when you book it out. Yeah, so we'll get into the content here, but I can tell you right off the bat, I was not super impressed with this guy. I think he's a Doom Tower expert, and I think he very, very much needs his partner Thea to make his kit work, because while he hit okay on a 4-turn cooldown to place a 2-turn Hex, and let me show you how I have him built, and you can I put the mastery on him to try to increase it to 3 turns, but even then it doesn't happen all that often. So there's times that he just doesn't have the Hex up, and he's not all that useful without the Hexes, and it takes him a long time to kind of get going. You know, he needs accuracy, he needs speed, he needs crit rate, he needs a lot of stats, and you know, as a mid-game player, I don't have access to a lot of those things, so I was able to get his HP up to a decent level, his speed up. You know, I'd love that to be higher, but to try to get his crit rate and crit damage and accuracy to where I needed them, you know, you make do with what you got. On his masteries, I went Helm Smasher on him, typical nuke build with some accuracy and turn meter control. Yeah, I mean, fairly typical. I was able to get him in a accuracy set and a cruel set, and yeah. So let's take him in to a couple of dungeons, and really what I did was I just kind of switched him out for my. Let's take him to the Void. So normally I would have a seer in here, and she would nuke the waves. And what you'll see here is he AIs into his A3 to get the Hex and increased accuracy on the mobs, and then hits with his A2, which is pretty hard hitting. And I'll slow it down so you can see what happens here. So you know, he's got a lot of the good stuff going. So he's got the poisons on them. He's got an increased attack from martial odds, passive, and then yeah, and then you know, his Hex. So the Hex is up, and then he'll do his A3, you know, so you can see it does 80, 90 per hit, which is pretty good, right? But unfortunately, it's on a 4-turn cooldown. So in this fight, he's just going to kind of hang out and wait for his A2 or A3 to come back up so he can get the Hex. And then when we get to the dragon, it's a one target, obviously, so he doesn't get a lot of his benefit, because a lot of his benefit is based on having 4 or more enemies under his Hex. So I think he's probably built for a Doom Tower. and we'll take him there next. But I just wanted you to see what he does in a regular. So we get to the dragon in 113. He did get wiped out, but we have a Duchess here to pick him up, so no one's in any real jeopardy. But you can see he's just going to kind of hang out until, and then he needs at least 2 turns to get his damage off. And yeah, I mean, I'd give him a B in the legacy dungeon runs. Does pretty decent damage on a 4-turn cooldown, kind of slow, not wonderful. So, he does have some survivability where he puts himself under the perfect veil, which is nice. But I think most people that are, in the midst of Doom Tower hard have some champions to protect anyway. So, not super helpful. So again, I haven't yet logged on to my clanmate's account to pair him up with the Thea, and I'm thinking and I'm hoping that maybe those 2 paired are going to really be a combo to mess with. So you'll see his damage is meh. He does 1 million damage. My Venus does 2. Mashallah does a bunch. He's sort of right there with Bad L. Not super impressed. So let's take him to Doom Tower, where I think he was really built for. And because he does have the increased accuracy, which is going to help in the upper levels of Doom Tower. So I'm going to take you to the last Doom Tower floor 29 on hard. You can see I got him in here with a very, very OP team. And we'll just let this run. And you can see that, he does some work. It's not wonderful. I'll slow it down after he gets his Hex off, so you can see what kind of damage he does on these guys. So he's got his Hex up. The decrease down and weaken is on there from Lydia. So here comes his A2. So, I mean, between 10 and 25, I mean, that's not, I don't know, that's not super wonderful. I put a Seer in here, and she wipes the wave. I mean, Seer is OP, but, I think I could probably do better with a different champion. In fact, we'll let this run, and we'll bring Ginbo in here, who is my new favorite nuking champ, and we'll see what kind of damage he can do on these mobs with his kit. But yeah, by himself, I give Ruel a B. Not super impressive. So I'm going to pause the video here, and then I'll pick it up again when we get to the end, and I'll show you the damage. Okay, so we're back on the last wave, and yeah. So the problem with this guy's kit is you want your debuffer, your defensive down and weaken champ to go first. Well, that champ goes before he has a chance to put his increased accuracy. So I have my Lydia at like 360 accuracy, and she still misses debuffs without the increased accuracy. You can see there. So the problem is, and you can see, yeah, he led the team in damage, but this isn't a really big damage team. I mean, he barely beat Coronar, who was built in a stun set to just kind of crowd control with his provoke and the stun set. But anyway, the problem is that Lydia goes first without the increased accuracy and tends to miss some of the debuffs, even though she's built with pretty high accuracy, right? So his kit is meant to bolster her accuracy. Well, the problem is he uses that after she goes, so we have to wait till that cooldown comes back. His increased accuracy is on a 4-turn cooldown, so you really have to get 5, 6, 7, 8 turns into the fight before these kind of things line up and he's able to put his increased accuracy to allow some of these debuffs to hit. And he doesn't do all that huge damage. I mean, I run my Seer through here and she's at 2.5, 3 million by the time we get through. So, well, maybe not that high, but she's considerably higher. But let's do this. Let's bring an epic champ in here and see if he will do more damage than our Ruel, because I am not all that impressed with his damage. I feel like he either needs to have a passive that maybe places the increased accuracy at the beginning of the turn so your debuffer can take advantage of it, because he is definitely built for Doom Tower, right? When you get up into these higher levels of Doom Tower, and I've never really made it past, I think, 60, but even then, your debuffer is missing most of their shots, because the resistance on these mobs is just enormous. So we're going to lose our nuker here a bunch, because obviously these guys smack. So, but I'm curious if Ginbo will do more damage than Ruel did. Now he does have some passive. Ruel has some passives to increase the damage across the team, which is nice. But yeah, I don't know if it's all that super helpful. So we will see. So I'm going to pause it here and wait till we get to the end again, and we'll take a look. Okay, so we're on the last fight, and you can see my poor Genbo is just taking a beating. I think Duchess is tired of picking him up. And that might, I think we have to give credit to Ruel that he is more survivable for sure. But, when it comes to damage, I'm not sure if he's putting it out there in a way that's going to be very meaningful. But we'll see. These mobs are tough. I mean, they got really, really high defense, so even a 60% defense reduction on them is, still leaves them with a bunch of defense. So, and the increased accuracy will definitely help our debuffer. So, let's see. Okay, so yeah, so he didn't do as much. We relied on Coronar more. So, okay. So yeah, so he is definitely viable in Doom Tower. And so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a hold of my clanmate, who is Rycliffe, and we are going to ask him to borrow his account and run both Ruel and Thea together. Okay, we are back, and we are on my buddy Rycliffe's account, and he has both Thea and Ruel, because that seems to be the dynamic duo. Now the idea is this new Hex Meta, I believe, right? Where she has a chance of placing a Hex, and Ruel will place a Hex, and then she does damage on her A2, where she will increase her damage by 50% for each Hex debuff on the enemy team, stacks up to 300%. So that would be 6. They would have to have 6 Hex debuffs on the team to stack up to 300%, right? But here's the problem. Let's go into the dungeon and look at the same thing we did on my account. We'll go into Void, and I built the team. So I put Bad L in the lead to help with the crit rate, because their crit rates weren't quite at 100. So with his passive, we should get, or his aura, we should get them to 100. Obviously, our defense is down and our protection. But what you'll see is the Hex debuffs do not stack. I figured they'd be like poisons. You'd get Hex debuffs all across the top here, and when you got 4 or 5, then Thea would be doing this mad damage, but they don't stack. Here, so we'll get the poisons up, we'll get the defense down, we'll let Duchess do her thing. Okay, now we're gonna put a hex debuff on, we're gonna put accuracy on ourselves and a hex debuff on the whole team. So we've got 2 turns, 1 hex debuff for 2 turns, right? Now, you would think when we do her A1, which attacks 2 enemies at random, has a 75% chance of placing a hex debuff for 5 turns. So I'm going to attack this champion. I would have thought we would see 1 hex debuff for 5 turns and 1 hex debuff for 2 turns. But that's not what happens. Watch. It replaces the hex debuff. So there's really no way to get her to 300% because the most hex debuffs you can get on an enemy is 1. So now I'm going to let this run in auto because you can see she does do really, really good damage between her and Ruel. And those facelesses are just brutal. But you'll see she ends up with a ton of damage, which is fine, which is great. But I think her kit is broken. I don't think that that's right. The hex debuffs have to stack in order for that A2 to do the damage that it's promising, but they don't. You can see it's a yeah, they clear waves pretty easily. We'll go into Doom Tower next, but I don't know if that's a problem with a bug where possibly they're meant to stack and they're not right now, or that's going to be the continued, because you'll see on a 1 target enemy, these guys don't do wonderful damage. I mean, you'd be better off with a Cold Heart or a Seer in here for sure. I mean, they just, they do okay, but it's not anything to write home about. And again, you'll never see more than 1 hex debuff here. The 5 turn is Thea and the 2 turn is Ruel, and she is never able to do the damage promised. Plus she removes the hex debuff as well, so it's not like she can even come back around and place it again. So I'm not sure if they're going to, maybe there's additional champions that are coming to the game that are going to make this more viable, but right now that's pretty disappointing. I mean, I like the damage they do together, and she ends up with 2 million or so, which is pretty good. Yeah, so Ruel does 2.5, Thea did 782. That's funny. It was reversed last time. So these two together, I mean, they do fine, but not what was promised. Without stacking the hex debuffs, we're not doing the things we're supposed to do. Okay, so he is at a much higher level here. So I am going to, you know what, I'm going to go back to the floor I was on because I honestly don't know if I can beat those mobs. And we're going to put the, oh, shoot, hold on. Okay, so we're going to put these in, and we're going to see how this goes in the Doom Tower, because I think this meta is meant for these long Doom Tower fights. But again, without being able to stack, no, I mean, the damage is unbelievable. And after this fight, I'll show you the build that he's got on these guys, which is pretty good. He's got Savage and crit damage, and he's got some really nice sets on them. So, which I don't have the gear for yet. But someday when I grow up, Poor Ruel. Any attack-based champion in Doom Tower just struggles. I mean, these mobs are just, they just hit so hard and they're so beefy. You just can't get through them. Okay, so we're fine now, I think. And I think on the third wave we're going to be good, where we actually get some of the synergy with these champions between the increased accuracy and the hex removal and damage. But it's interesting. Yeah, I had assumed we were going to see these, like poisons, we were going to see these hex debuffs all the way out. But no, you get one hex debuff. I'm not sure if maybe they're saying each turn of the hex debuff would count as one. So, but even then she can only get 5, right? Which would be only 250% extra damage. And you give up a lot, like you give up a lot of defensive stats to have both Ruel and Thea in here. Like you can see this is not a very comfortable run. I mean, there's been a lot of reviving that needs to be done here. So I'm not sure where these two fit in. Yeah, the damage is fun. They're beautiful champions. But they seem bugged. Okay. So here, let's finish. Yeah, I mean, they did fine. Lydia did more damage than Ruel. Of course, he was dead most of the time, but that's Doom Tower, right? It was not even high Doom Tower. So let me show you the builds he has on his Thea and his Ruel. And you can see he's got a Savage set and a crit damage set. He's got almost 4,500 attack, 190 speed, really good, almost 100%. That's why I had Bad L in there, because she does need crit. One of her skills is based. When she places this hex debuff, it can't be resisted. So each critical hit will reduce the cooldown of this, which is on a 5 turn. So you definitely want her to crit to reduce the cooldown of that. So yeah, so you can see it's a pretty good build for her. And then Ruel, let's see if we can find him. I mean, look at this account. Holy Moses. I would kill for these champions. Here he is. Okay. And you'll see, obviously, he has built him out much better than I could. Got his accuracy, got his speed, 4,600, 223 speed. I mean, unbelievable build with 2 crit damage sets and a cruel set. Man, God love it. God love it. The masteries, very similar to what I did. And then on Thea, we'll look at her masteries. No, that's not Thea. This is Thea. Yeah, similar. So, to sum it up, I have to say I'm disappointed. I'm not sure if that's a problem or if that's how these champions are meant to be. Rycliffe, I appreciate you letting me on your account. If you like the video, please subscribe and leave me a comment below. And we will see you on the next video.